Even though property investments in Turkey is a lost cause, here's why I'm looking to buy a property here in Istanbul, and why you may want to do the same if you are looking for global mobility, and of course, you may not as well. Hello and welcome back to the Traveling Report. Today I wanted to go over why I am looking at buying a property here in Istanbul, Turkey, and really go over why it may be a good idea to look into Istanbul properties specifically, even though Turkey in general is kind of going downhill. So, of course, when I speak on this, I will give a disclaimer that it is a very difficult, right, to operate in Turkey right now. There are a bunch of nationalists. I've been harassed. I have been told to go home quite often, and just because I'm American too. And of course, that's something that I expected. That's not something that was at all concerned about, really, as most nationalists in Turkey are not realistically that scary to me. And additionally, even though, of course, there's news stories like the Marines getting attempted to be kidnapped, I believe that realistically, there hasn't been that much to be worried about or concerned about in the recent past. That said, still keep your wits about you. However, back to the property market. I believe that realistically, what you want to do in Turkey is not necessarily buy for investment. If you're buying for investment, you may as well burn the money. It's realistically not going to give you a return. And even though property values will go up on paper, in the actuality of it, you're not selling for what they list on paper. You're not selling for the price they say is able to be gotten. And so, in essence, you have a disconnect between what is possible to get for your property and what is the actuality. And many people don't realize this, as developers certainly won't tell you this, but also salespeople and real estate agents won't tell you about resale value like they will in most countries, as their goal is not to help you resell. It is to invariably make money and make commission. And so, in essence, you have a large amount of people who will take advantage of the fact that you don't know much and who will price up your property. Now, in central Istanbul, it's actually not that expensive relative to the region to buy a property in city center. It's anywhere from 1,600 US dollars to 3,000 US dollars, which if you compare that to, I'll just use an example, Bucharest, which is obviously bordering Turkey, I believe that realistically you're looking at massive cost savings. However, that cost savings comes at the expense of liquidity. There is no deep capital markets in Turkey, and especially if you're trying to sell in USD or Euro terms, forget it. No one's going to pay you in USD, no one's going to pay you in Euro. And especially with the increase in the amount of foreign buyers leaving Turkey, it is something you should be looking out for. Now, where am I looking at buying in Turkey, and how do I perceive the investment climate in Turkey? As I said, the investment climate is non-existent, and I am buying specifically for access to Istanbul Airport and SAW. The IATA codes, SAW. And so, essentially, you have two of the most connected airports in the world, realistically, that are within a driving distance, maybe 30 minutes of Fatih. And so I think I will buy either in Taksim or Fatih. And the reason I would buy in Taksim or Fatih is because there are protected areas within Taksim or Fatih that drive prices way, way down. And so even though they are very central districts, they do drive prices down. It's similar to a Georgian neighborhood I will talk about later, which is Alavari, which is the historical Armenian quarter, where, of course, a lot of the buildings you are required to maintain in a certain way as they are considered cultural heritage. However, the good thing about cultural heritage properties, and I will go over exactly what that means and how that plays out in Georgia, as I believe it's easier to record in properties in Georgia, and I know Georgian, so I can give you the real data and the real scoop. Of course, I speak some Turkish, but not nearly enough to be considered an insider. I'm working on it, though. I'm getting there. That said, of course, you have a lot of potential benefits to buying in a connected hub. This is the same thesis I'd have in Dubai or Abu Dhabi. You're not looking for yield here. You're looking for a way to increase your global mobility. And so for me, buying a property in Turkey, in Abu Dhabi, in Kutaisi, these aren't because I think that realistically I'm going to somehow sell them. I'm not going to sell them. The liquidity markets are non-existent. People are not willing to buy. Prices listed, and you're getting a regional and global hub that is some of the most connected. And so that's powerful in that, of course, you can, fly from Turkey to New York, or Turkey to somewhere in Latin America, or Turkey to Asia without issue, because they realistically have the connections. Even Africa, which is historically hard to get to. That says, of course, if you are looking to quote-unquote invest in Turkey, I would caution you to realize that they will have no liquidity and price accordingly to that. If you are looking for one-on-one consulting over this topic exactly on how to increase your global mobility, I would recommend contacting me down below in the description on the Calendly link. You can get 15 minutes of consulting absolutely free, one-on-one. If you liked this video, feel free to like it. If you really liked this video, feel free to share it with your friends. And of course, if you are looking to join me on this journey of internationalization and globalization, feel free to subscribe. This has been the Traveling Report, signing off.